Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier. Well, Kism Mass in Grenada on last Wednesday night, was a Mass with a difference when Father Gerard Paul took to the altar to express his views on the church's reaction, response, and handling of the Gaza crisis, the Palestinian crisis, which the world is now calling a genocide, while Israel continues to say that it's defending itself with tens of thousands of people in a humanitarian crisis. Now, Father Gerard called out the church. Father Gerard, who's always been a bit of a radical priest, called out the church, the Bishop of Grenada, Clyde Harvey, and the Pope, and claimed that they've been silent on the situation. He's also said they seem to be supporting the Israeli position of defending that they have the right to defend themselves. It has caused quite a stir within the church. It divided the church in a way, some supporting Father Paul's position, while others saying that it was the wrong place and the wrong time for a priest to maybe go rogue. Father Gerard Paul joins me now for us to talk about the remarks that he made on Kism, which is a time of unity for the church when the oils are blessed for distribution across the diocese. And he'll join me now to talk about why he chose there and then to take a stand. Welcome to the program, Father Jerry.
Good morning, Callistra. I have not heard your program many times, but the very few times I've heard it, I've been very impressed by your work and your beauty as well. Your presentability, the way you present the program, you're nicely dressed and everything is just really nice. But I really have enjoyed hearing your program and listening to the substance to depth. So yes, it has been a pleasure. So I'm happy to be on your program this morning.
I'm happy to have you, and I'm sure that this one will be a program of high public interest as well. Now, Kism, quite a surprise. I don't think many people expected such a strong position to be taken at Kism Mass at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. It's a big night for the church during Holy Week. But you chose to deliver some remarks, some stinging remarks against the church. So you went after the Pope, you went after Bishop Clyde Harvey, you went after some of your fellow priests. Do you have any regrets over the remarks that you delivered at Kism on Wednesday night?
No, not at all. I thought about it. In fact, this is quite normal for me. I speak about Gaza every day. There isn't a Sunday that passes that I don't speak about Gaza, that I don't pray for Gaza, and situations of that kind in the world. So it's not exceptional to speak about it on that occasion because, as I said, I speak about it every Lord's Day. Every day we celebrate Mass. Well, I cannot understand for the life of me how people could go on living quite normal. And I understand to a certain extent because human beings like comfort, like to be comfortable. We, no matter what situation we find ourselves in, we do find some zone to be comfortable, and by so doing, ignore circumstances around us, and that's human. I mean, come on, you have a bad foot and the foot is hurting you. You still have to eat, you still have to drink, you still have to hobble around, and you still have to be normal. And when somebody calls you and asks you how you're doing, you say, "I'm quite fine." We meet each other on the street and we say to each other, "Hello, and how is your day going? How are you doing?" And I say, "I'm quite fine. That time I'm dying of cancer." So there is an extent to which you can understand that people act, and I say act in a normal way in very difficult times. But that does not mean that we must ignore reality. So that's why I'm saying, in the midst of such a catastrophe, people are acting and living normally. But it is not unusual to talk about the real issues.
Well,
of the day
well,
at the moment.
as you spoke on the altar, and it's not necessarily speaking on the issue, but the manner in which you chose to address it. You also, you talked about the retreat at Mount St. Albans, and you talked about the hierarchy of the church, or the priests and the bishop, and so meeting, never speaking about Gaza, but eating and drinking and having a good time is really the impression that you conveyed. Uh, do you? It seemed to be an attack on the church, and in particular the bishop and his priests in Grenada. Do you regret that though, or do you stand by
Oh, not at all.
even the
Not at all.
delivery of your message at
No,
present?
no, not at all. Not at all. There are two things in life, two human faculties that matter. The Greek call it the logos and the pathos. The logos deals with the rational part of us, and the pathos deals with the emotional part of us. And this is not anything Greek. I'm just using the Greek terms.
Mm.
It's quite human that we exude emotions, and we show passion, and we also are very rational beings who can be very cool and temperate and so on. But then there is a mix of both of them. And in some situations, we can and should express strong emotions. And I have no apologies for expressing strong emotions in that instance. In terms of what I spoke of, the substance and the references I make, I have no apologies neither. And I will say 10,000 times again and 10,000 times stronger. So I went at a priest retreat, which we normally have, I think in October last year. I think it's October, it's a month, October or November, we have that retreat. Maybe November. And that was in the early days of the Gaza situation. So I was quite moved by the fact. Now, I cannot say that nobody ever uttered Gaza. I don't know. I cannot say that there was no discussions at all on Gaza. I don't know. But for the many days that I was there and the many, many hours that I was there, nobody uttered the word Gaza. At one point in time, the priest presenting the retreat, I really wanted to raise the issue of Gaza. And I don't know, I kept quiet. Because here we are, it's like a fire raging across the road there. You're seeing the fire raging. You're seeing children running out of the fire. You're hearing people bawling. And we're sitting here having a retreat like nobody's business. This is how it's occurring to me. I mean, I talked about people eating and drinking, that's nobody's business. And I mean that. Because to an extent now, and back then even more, I mean, eating and drinking is a very difficult thing for me personally. Because, as a matter of fact, I don't like to talk about these things, but I can say this. It was at the beginning of the Gaza um, situation that I began to fast. Sometimes 3, 4 days I don't eat. And it was originally in solidarity with the people of Gaza who are not getting food. Now I eat once a day, and many days, as I said, I don't eat. And this is not to boast or to say anything. The bishop, I understand that his program say that I came out there to make a show of myself. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he either pretended he don't know me or he doesn't know me. You understand? Because I'm a person who express exactly according to the Nigerians, I weigh my emotions on my shoulder, on my sleeves. I do not hide who I am. And I'm not a person looking for public sympathy or the public to look at me. And I mean, again, if anybody knows me, they know that's not true. I'm a very shy person. When I tell people I'm shy, they don't believe because I do a lot of public speaking and so on, but I'm very shy. You know, the
And
same person who public speaks, the next moment I am in the crowd and I'm quiet. I literally don't want people to see. So Clyde don't know what he's talking about. Or he's being very insincere.
And so there's what appears to have been a clash with the bishop. When he responded at Kism, he responded, and one of the things that he said was that Father Jerry did not have my permission to say the things that he did. And on
Well, I
his
don't
own,
have to have his permission to say anything,
and on,
anywhere.
and on
I
his
don't
own,
need his permission. I don't need the permission of anybody to say anything anywhere. The United States Army can kill me, they can bind me, they can put me in prison, but they can't stop me from being me. So when Clyde talking about I don't have his permission, that is quite immaterial. Go ahead, please.
he's also said that he has written to the archbishop or the next
Yeah, the
step above
Archbishop
him.
of,
Yes.
that's what I.
And it seems, I get the impression that he is preparing to take some sort of disciplinary action. But from everything you just said, you don't seem to care.
But that doesn't matter to me. Kalisha, if we are going to be who we are meant to be, why should we be troubled? This is inauthentic living. If I am acting and I am living every day, I'm doing what I am doing because I know Kalistra is looking at me. I know people are looking at me. And I am now playing to suit them. I'm acting to suit them or not to suit them. But I'm very aware of the eyes that are looking at me every day. And that is influencing my thought patterns, my actions, and so on. That is inauthentic living. Most of us live inauthentically every day of our lives. We're doing what we're doing because of the public. And people constantly tell me that and tell you that and tell everybody that. Kalisha, why do you have your hair like that? And why this? And why that? And why do you dress like this? And you constantly worried. Are you constantly worried as to how you are dressed? Do you not have an inner forum from which you live? I live from my inside. I can't be living worrying about what people think and what people say and what the bishop is going to do. What the hell the bishop want to do, let him do. But I am going to do what I want and what I believe is right to do.
So you have been
It's
a
as simple
priest.
as
You have been a priest for many years. You're not worried that you might be, is it defrocked, we say, that you would be thrown out of the
that. Are you
priesthood?
worried that you're going to die?
Well,
Are you worried you're going to die?
it is an
You have been living
inevitability. So
40, 45, 50 years now.
you live until you die. So,
Right?
but I don't know if you preach until you can preach no more, until you get thrown out. I mean,
Well,
what if
yes, yes.
what,
Everything has a limit. Everything has an end. Everything has an end. You know, I could want to preach for eternity.
who is Gerard Paul without the frock?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I like that. Um, and I like the word the frock too, and not the gong because I like to kick on the frock. Um, yeah, I am me, and there are many people who wouldn't be anybody without the frock. And isn't that sad? They are so part and parcel of the frock. Let me tell you something. After Second Vatican Council, 1965, 1962 to 1965. The changes in the church were so dramatic. The language was changed. It was Latin. Now you can speak in the vernacular, people's language. Everything changed. The priests had, at the time, Mass was said with the back of the back of the priest to the people. The people were watching the back of the priest. You know, the changes were so dramatic that 100,000 priests left the priesthood. And many of them just couldn't find themselves. A lot of fellas didn't know how to do a job, how to find a job, how to do this, how to do that, how to do the other. Because their lives were so locked in the what is seen to be the priesthood that they didn't have a life other than that. So once you rip off that scab of the priesthood and took out the frog, they couldn't survive. There are people who literally died. And that is very sad. You know, Father Henry Charles, a hero of mine, the seminary rector for many years and part of the time I was at seminary, he always said, a priest is first and foremost a man. And if you're not a man, you can't be a priest. A lot of people parading as priests and they're not men. Okay? Kalisha, you are first and foremost Kalisha before you are a journalist. And if journalism is ripped off from you one day, you're supposed to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, sit on your own bottom, and continue your life. And probably your life will increase and expand and become deeper and become more service to people. So the idea that somebody can defrock me, which Clyde said to me he thought of once, but that is his business. That doesn't really matter to me at all. He thought of defrocking me and all kind of stupid. That really doesn't matter to me. Because the person Gerald is going to continue to live on. And I'm going to continue to be a human being. I'm going to continue to try to be kind. I'm going to continue to try to live for justice, for truth, for my integrity, and everything will continue. And the priesthood that I would have experienced, I've been a priest for over 30 years, and in all, it's about 39 years since I went to seminary. That will feed the person I continue to be. Journalism will always be a part of your life. It cannot be taken away from you. You would always, even in prison, you will hear the stories, you will create the stories, your imagination will continue to work, and you will continue to be, and you will increase. So it really doesn't matter. And by the way, I was at seminary. I had a falling out with Sidney Charles. He threw me out of seminary and so on. I met with him, and at the end of the meeting, I call him Uncle Sid because I don't call nobody my Lord. They call the bishop my Lord. I don't call nobody my Lord. My Lord is Jesus Christ. Okay? I said to him, Uncle Sid, let me tell you something. If God wants me to be a priest, 10,000 bishops like you and Pope can't stop me from being a priest. So this is what I live by, and this is not a boast, and that's how we should all live. I live by the grace of God. I don't live by the grace of Clyde Harvey or Pope Francis or anybody like that. Okay?
But and you seem to be accusing the church of Israel has been saying that, because this all started with your position on Israel and the comments that you made at Prism. You seem to be suggesting that from the Vatican come right down, there has been a silence. And, the Catholic Church is noted for taking a stand on issues in the world at various times in the world.
I'm not sure about that. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, they've come out on issues. They have come out on issues.
Yeah.
At various times in the world, whether you like where they've come down or not, they have. You've heard the church. You're not, but you are saying you're not really hearing the church as you would like to hear them in this. You also seem in your comments to be accusing the church of supporting the narrative, and you use the word narrative quite a lot. That Israel is trying to float to the world, that they have the right to defend themselves, and you seem to be saying that the church is behind that narrative. They're supporting that narrative with their silence. Or, I mean, what did you mean by that? Do you think the church is supporting, the Catholic Church is supporting Israel's position that they are justified in the mass killings and the genocide that is taking place palace in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank?
So we can do things wittingly or unwittingly. We can do things consciously or unconsciously. Okay? If you see somebody, you see somebody attacking a child, your next door neighbor, somebody, okay, so let me put it this way. If Father Gerard Paul has a young boy or a young girl locked up in his house and abusing that person, and the neighbors know, and they're not saying anything, they are complicit in it. We all know that. Um, and let me make it clear, the church has not been completely silent. Many persons have spoken out. The Pope has spoken out, but he has spoken, in my view, very softly, very tenderly. You know, I mean, I don't want to get down on the Pope. I like Francis, but I mean, you know, there are things when we come out very strong, and I've never heard Clyde Harvey say anything about the Gaza situation. I don't say he has never said. I have never heard him say. You know, I understand there was a big argument in Grenville. People were standing somewhere, line up to go to some institution, I think some financial institution, and the issue of this thing came out there. And you know what one Catholic said? You know, they never offer a mass for Gaza. We in the Catholic Church offer masses, prayers all the time for all sorts of situations. And that person said that. Now that's that person's experience, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying all of that to say that it's not that the church hasn't said anything at all. But to me, the church has said pretty little. Not to me. The fact is that the church has said pretty little about
Very,
God.
very, very little on a situation of that magnitude.
That's the point. Okay? So let me give you something, for example. The Pope recently, and I want to be very careful here not to misquote or to give any wrong impression. But the Pope came out with a document in which he talked about blessing same-sex couples. Okay? Now, I have heard that spoken widely throughout Grenada and everywhere I have traveled, even in Dubai. I was in Dubai in January. And you hear people talking about that. Why am I not hearing people talking about what the Pope said about Gaza? Nowhere, nowhere. Yes, I know he has said on at least two occasions I know of. But why am I not hearing it? You see what I'm saying? And
Do you feel like the church? Do you feel like the church and the Pope should be more on the front line calling for a ceasefire? I think that was one of the things
that's
you
the point.
mentioned when
That's the
you were
point. You
speaking.
see, that's the point. I mean, the Pope has gone out on a limb to to talk to talk about the blessing, to encourage pastors, priests to bless same-sex couples, a very controversial issue.
Mm.
Now, I don't agree with him at all, and others can agree with him. People can have different views. But on a very controversial issue of such, he has gone out, and the world knows about it. But has the world heard the voice of the Pope on Gaza? You see what I'm saying?
You say no.
Okay. And likewise with Clyde and everybody, other leaders. Now, let me tell you something. The church has a history of silence on many issues. Yes, the church speaks out. Where was the church in slavery? Where was the Catholic Church in slavery?
Benefiting.
Benefiting. There was one guy called Las Casas in Latin America, trying to remember which are the Latin American countries, a priest who went out to fight for the Indians and so on. But he himself had slaves earlier on and he got converted. They say he had an Indian girlfriend. They say, I don't know if it's true. He had an Indian girlfriend and he was converted eventually. But in the wide spectrum, did we hear the church coming out against slavery? The church was implicit. The church was involved in slavery. The church was blessing soldiers, the European soldiers and the European people to go and hang and to go and kill people. Who was the friends of the overseers and the white plantocracy who came here? Who was eating and drinking and drinking whiskey and so on with them and mingling in their homes? It was the priests and the high clergy people. Where was the church in the civil rights movement in the United States? Where was the church? The church was Martin Luther King and the black church in the United States. Where was the Catholic Church? It is just so plain to see. And, facts are stubborn things. They don't go away. The fact is that in the civil rights movement, when they were setting dogs and they were killing people and hanging people, where was the church in the post-slavery era in the United States with the Jim Crow laws and so? Where was the church?
Father Paul, I wanna move on though to a question that as we speak about Father Bishop Clyde Harvey, your bishop.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was not happy with your remarks.
He's the bishop. He's the bishop.
The bishop. Given his radical past, because he has a radical past as well, and involvement in social activism as a young priest in his native Trinidad and Tobago, are you surprised that he has taken issue with your presentation at Kism and the way he has spoken about your presentation, even on his own Catholic news network talk show that he appears on, Conversation with the Bishop? Are you surprised at the stance that he has taken against you on this, given that he, as a young priest, he was very much into, he was a very radical priest, challenging people, Bishop Pantene and so on?
I was not surprised because by then I think I would have come to know the real Clyde Harvey. Okay? I admired Clyde Harvey as a young guy. At 12 years old, Clyde came to Grenada and spoke at a youth rally at Sutter's. I think Father Oliver Levy was instrumental in that. And I can't tell you what he said now, I don't remember a thing, but I know I was well impressed. And I was very much inspired by him. And since then, I followed him through the Catholic news, and I thought he was a radical and so on and so forth. So let me tell you something about this thing called radical. In my own view, from what I've seen, there is a tendency when we are young, we're very radical, and then we grow more and more conservative as we get older and older. When we are young, we're very positive about the world. We think we could get up, we could change everything. As we grow older and older, we realize some things will never change. At least that's what we believe. And we calm down and we accept a lot of things and so on and so forth. So that could be the case with him. I do not know if it was falsity, because a lot of people pretend to be very radical, It's nice to be radical in a time when radical is the thing. In the age of the Black Power, when Clyde Harvey was growing up in the 1970s and so on, it was a popular thing to be radical. It's not popular to be radical now. And let me talk about what the meaning of radical. People like to call me a radical priest and so on. People can give me whatever designation they want. I cannot do anything about that. But the word radical has a positive and a negative connotations. So often when we speak about radical, we speak about somebody who is out of the way, who is taking a different stance from others. And that, to an extent, that would always be a true reflection of what it means to be radical. But often it means, oh, he's a radical, you know what I mean? So don't touch him. You could expect anything from him and that kind of a thing. But you know what the radical is? The radical is the root. You remember in a seed, hmm, the shoot goes up and the radical goes down, the root. Okay? So when you speak about a radical, you're speaking about somebody who is deeply rooted in whatever, deeply
But
rooted. Okay?
do you feel that in the years that you've been a priest here, that you have used this grounding that you have to make a difference, to raise a movement that would make a difference? Do you feel like you have been able, the way of that you are of being a priest, which is on, we've had a few priests who have been um, connected and on the ground like you are, but do you feel like you've been able to make a difference and establish a movement and put your stamp on uh, progressive movement within the church?
Maybe that's true, but often I feel that I have not done enough and I have not been enough the me I should be. Um, yeah, so maybe that's true. I don't know. History will make the judgment, but the most important thing is that we be ourselves and we be the best of ourselves, and that's the most important thing. As I say, history will judge afterwards. You know.
But others view you as a well, certainly the bishop seems to view you as a troublemaker priest. You know, others also say it is not becoming of a priest to be wearing earring, your hairstyle, playing jab jab. Um, what do you say in your defense to those who would criticize your style?
I don't defend it. A woman came to my office. She called me at short notice, and she came to be interviewed for a job in the laboratory. She came so sudden, I went out of my way. I had locked my office. I used the lab manager's office. I did everything to accommodate her. And we began a conversation, and afterwards, she watched me in a way I can't describe. And, and, and and she literally said, I shouldn't be speaking to you. You have erring, you're this, you're that, and you're the other. And the interview kind of ended abruptly because she wanted to go, and that's fine with me. And I laughed, you know what I mean? What would do? I cannot be worried. The first time I played mass, I was 8 years old. I put on a old frock of my mother, and I covered up my face in a fashion, and I went around and I made 9 cents. Somebody gave me 4 cents. Somebody gave me 5 cents. I had the neighbors laughing, dogs barking at me, and all kind of thing. And the people had a joy, enjoy themselves. And since then, I've played mass. I played Trinidad all the time. I came back to Grenada and I went back to Trinidad to play mass all the
So,
time.
so is it that you feel like you do not owe an explanation to anyone? You do not need to defend
Well,
the position.
yeah, if somebody asks me in sincerity and somebody feels I shouldn't be doing that, I will have a discussion with them. But I'm not interested in defending myself. I'm not interested in, making it my duty to defend these things. People always find I'm different, and I'm happy to be different. Why do I
Okay,
have to be like everybody else?
it's good to be different. Now, my final, or my one before the last question to you, because I also want to ask you about the bishop's comments to you about. He said that he had whispered to you or said to you that he did not realize, and he said it on the altar. He didn't realize he had a Muslim among his priests. But before that, what would you say? And we've talked a lot about it, but as a specific, what are the broad social and religious philosophies that guide Father Gerard Paul?
Well, I'm a very firm believer in the man Christ, whom who people continue to refer to as a radical. Christ was different. I heard it said that I was a madman among the priests. I've heard it many times. Christ was called a madman too. There was once one occasion when his family was asked to come and rescue him. He was among the crowd speaking, and they said he was a madman. I'm not saying that to try to pretend to rub shoulders with Christ, but I'm just simply saying that people who are different are often referred to us as being crazy people, people to be dismissed. All the heroes were of our world for eternity were in fact dismissed. Mandela was called a terrorist. Um, Quite a few years after he was president of South Africa, he was still down on the list of terrorists by the United States, by England. And I mean, this is just a good example. I mean, the real terrorists of the world are not called terrorists. You know, Tony Blair is one of the greatest terrorists, one of the greatest criminals that have lived. George W. Bush, one of the greatest criminals that has lived. Ronald Reagan, all. I can give you history, none ending of the wars these guys have begun and fought and
I'm
killed
sure you can.
thousands of
But
people in Yugoslavia
but
in
but to get
20
to the
years of
but to get
war.
to the well,
That's nothing to.
hopefully you and Bishop Clyde Harvey can sit down over a rivers and coke. I don't know if you drink, and sort this all out and come to an
Let me tell you
understanding
something.
of each other. But we out of time, Father Jerry. We out of time
Yeah,
for this segment. I needed a whole hour for you.
yes. Riven Twine is just next to me there. So this is the first rum I grew up drinking. It's we are in Boundary, the thing. The bishop and I could have a drink anytime. That's not a problem. We have had it tough before and had a drink before. It can happen again. If it happens, it happens.
Thank you so much for joining me on The
You're
Narrative,
very,
Father
very
Gerard
welcome.
Paul. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Happy Easter to your audience.
Thank you.
Everybody be peaceful. Go out and enjoy the games and go to the beach and enjoy yourself. God's love and peace to everyone.
Thank you, Father.
You're
This
welcome,
is
mate.
The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Fario, speaking there with Father Gerard Paul, being viewed as a radical priest, making some strong comments at Chrism Mass in St. George's on Wednesday, at a time when the priests are renewing their vows, the church is renewing and unifying itself. And Father Paul chose that time to call out the Catholic Church on a whole, from the Pope come right down, on their soft stance on what's happening to the Palestinians now, the genocide and mass murder that is being meted out to the civilians of Gaza by Israel. The Bishop Clyde Harvey, did not take very kindly to his comments, and now considering whether or not disciplinary action should be taken against Father Paul. More when we come back. This is The Narrative.